Hunger clawed at his belly like a wild beast, but his eyes softened when he saw the trembling hands of the old couple. He had waited all day for that piece of bread, a treasure so small yet so rare in his life, but in that moment, the bread felt heavier than gold. His fingers shook as he held it out. The couple's eyes widened, their lips quivered, and their tears sparkled in the moonlight. He whispered to himself, barely audible, "Maybe tomorrow I will eat, but tonight, they need it more." And so began a story that would change everything. David was just 12, a boy with skin like polished ebony, eyes bright with dreams, but clothes worn thin by hardship. He lived with his mother in a shack of mud and rusting tin sheets that rattled every time the wind blew. Their roof leaked when it rained, and their kitchen was little more than a fire pit surrounded by empty bowls. Every day was a struggle. His mother, weary yet strong, worked long hours washing clothes for neighbors, her hands cracked from soap and water, her back bent but her spirit unbroken. Often, she skipped meals so her son could have a bite, pretending she wasn't hungry, though David always knew that he had grown used to the gnawing in his stomach, the hollow echo of hunger that came every night. But what he could never grow used to was the sight of his mother pretending to smile while her lips were dry, her body weak. His small heart carried a giant dream. One day he would study, become someone important, and lift his mother out of this pit of poverty. For now, though, survival was their only goal. That afternoon, fortune brushed past him like a whisper of mercy. A kind neighbor noticed his pale face, his thin arms, and handed him a small piece of bread wrapped in paper. David's heart leaped. He thanked the neighbor with eyes shining brighter than words could express. He clutched the bread tightly, running home barefoot on the rough, dusty road. All the way, his mind filled with images of his mother's tired face lighting up at the sight of food. He imagined the taste of the bread melting on his tongue, soft and warm, something more precious than any feast, but destiny had other plans. Just as he turned the corner, he saw them, the old couple, frail and bent, sitting under a tree. Their clothes were ragged, their faces pale, their eyes heavy with despair. They whispered to each other, unaware that anyone was watching. "We haven't eaten in 2 days," the old woman said, her voice breaking like dry twigs. "If we don't find something tonight," her words trailed off into silence. David froze. His feet felt rooted to the ground. His stomach growled loudly, reminding him of his own hunger. His mother's face flashed before his eyes, waiting for him at home. But as he looked at the couple, trembling in the evening cold, he felt something stronger than hunger, something burning inside him like fire. It was compassion. His mind argued, "If I give this away, I will have nothing. Mother will have nothing." His heart whispered back, "They may not see tomorrow if you walk away." With hands that shook as though holding the weight of the world, he stepped closer. He knelt, held out the bread, and said softly, "Please, take this." For a moment, silence hung heavy. The couple stared at him, eyes wide in disbelief. Then the old woman's hands reached forward, trembling as she accepted the bread. Tears streamed down her face. The old man placed his hand on David's head, his voice quivering, "Child, you have given more than food. You have given us hope." David forced a smile, though his stomach twisted painfully. He turned and walked away, empty-handed, his small frame disappearing into the dusk. Each step felt heavier, but his heart carried an odd warmth. When he reached home, his mother saw his pale lips and tired eyes. "Where is the bread?" she asked, her voice tinged with both worry and expectation. David hesitated. He didn't want to disappoint her. But his heart couldn't hide the truth. He lowered his eyes and whispered the story of the old couple. For a long moment, his mother was silent. Then tears welled up in her eyes. She pulled him close, holding him tightly against her chest. Her voice cracked with emotion. "My son, the world may call us poor, but tonight I know we are the richest of all. You gave away your meal, but you gained something no hunger can take, kindness." That night, there was no food on their table. The hut was silent except for the sound of the wind whistling through the cracks. Yet, there was warmth between mother and son, a warmth born not from full stomachs, but from love and sacrifice. David lay awake, staring at the ceiling, his hunger gnawing at him, but his heart strangely at peace. He thought about the old couple, hoping they would sleep with full stomachs and lighter hearts. Across the city, in a grand house with golden lights and marble floors, another man lay awake. His name was Mr. Thompson, a millionaire known for his wealth, his power, his success. Yet his bed felt cold, and his heart felt empty. Surrounded by riches, he longed for something money could not buy, meaning. That night, as the wind howled outside, he couldn't shake a restless feeling. It was as if the universe whispered to him, "Kindness is out there, pure and rare. Find it." Meanwhile, the old couple, now fed and strengthened by David's sacrifice, sat in the darkness, whispering prayers. "Bless that boy, Lord. He gave when he had nothing. He is your angel in a child's body." Their words floated upward like incense, unseen but powerful. The night closed with 3 hearts beating in different corners of the city, a boy who gave everything, a mother who felt pride stronger than hunger, and a millionaire searching for meaning he couldn't name. Destiny was weaving their lives together, thread by thread, preparing for a morning no one could predict. The morning air was crisp, but David awoke with a heaviness in his body. His stomach felt hollow, and his lips were dry. He rubbed his eyes, expecting the day to be just another battle against hunger. His mother was already awake, sweeping the floor with slow movements, her face pale yet determined. Just as David was about to step outside, a sound startled them both. A firm knock echoed at their door, unusual and unsettling for their small hut where visitors rarely came. David hesitated, then slowly opened the door. Standing there were the old couple he had helped the night before. Their eyes were brighter, their posture straighter, as if life itself had returned to them. But behind them stood a man unlike any David had ever seen. His suit was neatly pressed, his shoes shone, and his eyes carried both authority and gentleness. For a moment, David froze, unsure what to say. The old man smiled and said, "This is the boy, the one I told you about." The stranger stepped forward, studying David with a gaze that pierced deeper than appearances. "So, you are the one who gave away your only meal last night," he said softly. David nodded shyly, not sure why such a man would care about a poor boy's choice. The stranger knelt to meet David's eyes. "Do you know what it means to give when you have nothing? That is a wealth greater than gold." David's mother stepped forward, uncertain of what was happening. The stranger introduced himself as Mr. Thompson. The name meant little to them, but in the city it was spoken with awe. He was one of the richest men, known for owning businesses and lands. Yet here he was, in their broken hut, speaking to them as equals are. Thompson explained that years ago, the old couple had shown him kindness when he was struggling. They had fed him when he was young, with no expectation of return. The previous night, they had found him again and told him about David's sacrifice. "When I heard your story," he said, turning to David, "I felt something I had not felt in years. Your act reminded me of what truly matters." Without hesitation, he called for his men, who soon brought baskets of food, bread, rice, fruits, milk, things David had not seen in months. The tiny hut filled with the aroma of fresh food, and tears welled in his mother's eyes. She clasped her hands together, unable to speak. David looked at the food in disbelief, as though it might vanish if he blinked. but Mr. Thompson wasn't finished. He placed a hand on David's shoulder. "What do you dream of, boy?" David hesitated. He had always dreamed, but dreams seemed too fragile to speak aloud. With a timid voice, he whispered, "I want to study. I want to become someone who can help my mother, and help others too." The millionaire smiled. "Then that is what you shall do. From today, I will take care of your education, your needs, and your future. You will not go hungry again." The neighbors soon gathered outside, drawn by the unusual commotion. They gasped at the sight of baskets being carried into the hut, whispers spreading like wildfire. Some were astonished, others envious, but most were inspired. How could a poor boy's small act bring such a miracle? People looked at David with new eyes, no longer just a poor child, but a symbol of hope. As days turned into weeks, David's life began to change. He wore clean clothes, attended school, and learned quickly. His mother no longer worked herself to exhaustion, for Mr. Thompson ensured they had enough. The old couple often visited, smiling with pride whenever they saw David with his books. Mr. Thompson checked in regularly, guiding him not only with money but with wisdom. He told David, "Remember, success is not measured by what you keep, but by what you give." David carried those words in his heart. He studied with determination, fueled not just by his own hunger for knowledge but by the memory of hunger itself. Every meal reminded him of nights spent empty. Every lesson reminded him of the day he gave away bread and received hope in return. Years passed, and the boy grew into a young man with strength in his character and fire in his eyes. He excelled in his studies, and with Mr. Thompson's support, he pursued higher education. But unlike many who rise from poverty and forget their roots, David never forgot the cracked walls of his childhood home or the blessings of his mother's tears. One day, when he was old enough to stand on his own, David returned to the community with a vision. He built a center where orphans could find shelter, where the elderly could find care, and where children could study without worrying about hunger. He named it the House of Hope, in honor of the night his own hope had been kindled. The opening of the center brought people from all around, and many who had once looked down on him now looked up to him with admiration. His mother, now older but finally free of hardship, stood beside him at the inauguration, tears of pride shining in her eyes. The old couple, frail but smiling, watched with joy, whispering, "We always knew this boy was different." And Mr. Thompson, though his hair had grown gray, smiled with the satisfaction of seeing kindness multiplied. David spoke to the crowd that day, his voice strong and filled with conviction. "I was once a boy who went to bed hungry. I gave away the only food I had, not knowing what tomorrow would bring. But that single act of kindness returned to me in ways I could never imagine. Today, I want every child, every mother, every elder to know, when you give from the heart, even if it is small, the world will find a way to give back." The people clapped, some cried, and all felt the weight of his words. For them, David was no longer just a boy from the slums, he was proof that kindness could reshape destiny. He had turned his hunger into hope, his sacrifice into a seed that grew into a forest of generosity. As the sun set on the celebration, David stood quietly for a moment, remembering the night he handed a piece of bread to two strangers. That act had rippled across lives, binding him to people he once didn't know, lifting him from poverty to purpose. His journey was not about the food he lost, but the love he gained. And with that love, he vowed to spend the rest of his life giving, just as he had on that hungry night, for in the end, it wasn't the millionaire's wealth that changed David's life, it was his own choice to be selfless when it hurt the most. And that truth echoed in every heart that heard his story. Sometimes the smallest sacrifice carries the power to change the world.